light. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Hot, hot, hot.
So here we are in the part 2 video of our stone block hot press project build. If you haven't seen part 1, you're going to want to see that, where we cut up the paint tray and prepped all the pieces in phase 1 and 2. Now, here we are at phase 3, where we're going to take those prepped pieces and we're going to assemble them. And then we're going to test the press. And so let's do that right now. Phase 3.
Assembling the pieces.
So we have our pieces prepped. We have our jig with the backing plate, like so, that we will hot glue in just a moment. And we have our pointed pliers, we have our headlamp, and we have our hammer. So, that being said, let us assemble this thing. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take one of these number 2 pieces, and notice the orientation. The tabs are facing up, and the flat side is facing the table. And we're going to put all of these number 1 pieces into it. And starting with this one, just slap her right on in there, like so. We've already done the work on this, prep the pieces, so it goes in real smooth. And then put the next one in to the next tab over. And sometimes not so smooth. There's a lot of, from the little angled cuts, it creates a bit of, actually I'm going to flip this one, sometimes that helps. It creates a bit, there it goes, right in. And yeah, so if you kind of flap this around a little, sometimes it'll make it, just kind of create the room you need. There's the next one in. Actually, I like that. I'm going to do that. Kind of flap it. Put the next one in. Let's see if this still is in focus. Yeah. Now, at first, this thing's a big floppy mess, and that's normal. And here, we're just going to put, I'm going to do a little bit of explaining just for the first number 2s going into all these number 1s. Let me do that. Kind of like that style, actually. And then we're going to go into berserker mode after we get about 3 of these in. We're going to use the jig here in just a moment. But these ones just pop right in, like so. I'll show you an up close in just a moment. There, see, these things are just, they just go right in. I better be careful because this thing's going to fall apart until we get some more of these number 2s in here. They're just fitting right in, and they're a big mess right now. They won't be in a little bit once we get a couple more of these number 2s put into this mix. And oh, I should point out, all these pieces I'm putting in, all the cuts are facing down. The tabs were facing up on the 1 number 2. These ones are facing down. That's why they're going in. Don't be stubborn. Trying to shoot a video here. There we go. So, they're all in. And then now, what happens is, for basically the rest of the project, we are going to flip this thing over and put this into the jig. So, it goes like this. So now all the number 1 cuts are facing up, and the tabs are facing the correct orientation, which is down toward the table. And our final product is going to be the table side of this situation. This is the side we can tap on with the hammer and not worry about hurting. And then we just put all these into the little grooves of this jig. This is a little bit tricky, so just be patient. And incidentally, the first time I made one of these, I never even used a jig like this. I'm actually doing this because this video was really hard to shoot in real time. I want to make sure. I'm sorry my hands are covering everything. It's just how it's going to have to be. I actually have to do the work for this. Kind of tricky to get all these in. We'll get there. Once they're in, though, this thing is going to be stuck. It won't be able to escape while we're assembling the first few pieces, which can really drive you mad otherwise. Wow, this is really being stubborn. Believe me, this bit of tediousness is actually far more worth dealing with a bunch of loose, floppy pieces that keep falling out of each other. That would happen without this jig. I'm almost there. Yeah, that's it. Something's stopping it. But generally, they are in. This one's being stubborn. You can kind of see because the ones that are bending are stopping it. There it is. That's locked. So now, all we do is we take our piece right here and we make this thing so it cannot come loose. So all those pieces are in those slats of the jig. And then I'm going to hot glue this and capture it, and it won't be able to move around as much as we're putting the rest of some of the other pieces in. Okay. So, hot glue gun. And technical difficulties, this thing's barely hot. That'll do. Doesn't have to be a great bond, just enough to keep things in place. That's all that matters. This isn't for any final product. And then I'm going to slather a bunch more on the back side of this. Just hot gluing the heck out of it so it can't escape. And there we have it. So this thing is stuck in here, so as we tap and push these pieces in, this thing won't fall apart, because otherwise this would be really floppy. It'd be like assembling a Rubik's Cube times 4. It's really impossible to put in otherwise. Okay, and there we have that. Okay, so we have this in place. We're going to put the next number 2. And now notice the orientation now is the opposite because we flipped it over. So now putting all the tabs in downward, into the form. Also, to mention, the whole trick of this brick pattern is we need to alternate the number 2s and 3s. So I'm not going to be putting this into the next slot over. I'm going to skip that and go to the next one, the next one down this direction. So skip one and go to here, and I am going to do that directly. And this stuff, I'm going to fumble through this, and I'm going to try to do it in real time. We'll see. Also, actually, this is reminding me right now. If you notice, as you're doing this, if it's tilting one way, that means they're getting caught up on one of the 8 points on this side. That's where you're going to use the headlamp and the pliers here. So if it tilts this way, it's getting caught up here. Let's say it tilted the other way. Oh gosh, there you go. I almost just pulled this out of the form. If it tilts that way, then they're getting hung up over here. So you want to focus your pliers and your light, and you want to jiggle these around on that side. Now, if it's teeter-tottering, that means that the middle parts are getting caught up, and you want to focus on those. Once you get clear, you'll notice, you'll feel that when it just starts sinking in. So that's when you know you've hit pay dirt. So here we go. I'm going to try to do this right now. You want one of these tabs in every other one. And it's not a walk in the park. It is a little bit of a challenge here to do this. And one of the things I like to do is I just jiggle the pieces from side to side. And then if I have to, I'll grab this piece and jiggle that. And it kind of helps, and that way I'm not applying pressure with my hand and I'm going to cut my hand. I'm going to bring this up to my own so you can see this a little closer. It is a trick. Once these pieces start going in though, they'll go. I just flip this 180 because I want to see the other side. All of this stuff is necessary. Looking at it, see, I can already see that one's caught there. So you need to move that over a little. Yep, that just went in. That one's going in. Okay. Now this one. And again, almost like when I liked how I was kind of bending the tabs to make it fit in, I'm kind of still doing that. I'm taking these number ones and I'm just kind of easing them in. I am legend is caught on camera. I have an alarm for 3 a.m. that tells me to go to bed. I'm busted. I'm not going to bed. We're going to push through till the morn. Finish this. Oh my gosh, this one's stubborn. Okay, that one just slipped in. Okay. Sorry, this is just how it's got to be. I just really want you to see this. Wow, this one's a mess. There we go. Oh, okay. This is the part where it goes in like butter. I just kind of got past the hurdle, and I just am pushing that in with my fingers there. That just went in, and that is glorious when that happens. You'll see why. So that's in. And I'm going to probably go into fast forward mode. I'm going to mention what's needed. Basically, if I didn't use a lot of these pliers, if you need to move and tip the pieces that way, fine. You know, anywhere the number one needs to jiggle. And then also, I just did it with my fingers. I just took these tabs. I don't know if you can see this. I'll try it with the front piece. Took these tabs and just kind of wiggled them back and forth. And you just get the piece to fit in. So there's two of them in. And yes, it looks like a mess. And it will on this side. And the stuff's malleable, so we will be able to completely adjust the final face, which is facing downward right now, and fix all those bricks up, because this is a very malleable material. So I'm going to go into fast forward mode, and we are going to put, skipping every other space, we're going to put the other two number twos in, and then the number threes will fill in all the blank slots that haven't been used. And then that will be that. So let's do this. Okay, so we've finished the press, and congrats! It's done. But we have two real quick things to do that'll just take maybe a minute or two each. And then we're going to press out a sheet and test this thing. And then that will be a wrap. One thing I want to point out, and this is the first part we're going to look at, is if you notice, and this is, by the way, the table side of this thing, meaning the part that will press down into the sheet. So I just have it flipped upside down so we can see the final brick patterns. You'll notice as you finished and had to just compromise and work all these pieces in together that some of the pieces, like this guy, is horribly askew. And let's see, so there, that one's really messed up, that one's really crooked, there. And also the number ones going across are they're very wavy, and they just need to be straight lines, all the number ones that would be pressing into the foam. So we're just going to take some pliers and we're going to just straighten these up. And again, it's very malleable, and you just do the best you can. And the most important one, I think, is to make sure all the number ones are as least wavy as possible, but then with the compromise of the opposite, between 90 degrees of the compromise of also trying to get these as straight as possible. And you just do the best you can do, and you make it as, nice looking as you can. And then we'll do one more thing to this thing after that, and that'll be that. So let's straighten these up right now. Okay, so we have our brick / stone pattern here, and it is looking good. There is one more thing, the second thing we need to do to this thing before we start pressing out the foam sheets and testing this thing out, and that is, I want to point out that the first time I did this, I kind of made a little mistake where I thought it would be cool to have these number ones, all these number ones going across this way. I thought it would be cool to have them hanging over here and hanging over here, so as I pressed this thing along the sheet, I could line them up. Well, that didn't work out so well, as you can see in this image. There's this overhanging, and it's kind of caused by this thing I like to call wandering. We'll get into that in another video later on. As you go along, it's just human error to kind of waver. And so that didn't work out. So what we're going to do is, and this is the first time I've ever tried this, so this is kind of exciting for me, is we're going to cut each one of these number ones at this first ½ inch. And so right here, we're going to just snip it down a little, and we're going to bend the tab back like we've done that kind of thing before. And we're going to do that with all 8 of the number ones on one side of the piece. It really doesn't matter which side. On this one, it looks like it is a number 3 piece, because this is tall here. On this side, it would be like shortened right here. But so it doesn't really matter what side, as long as you do it to all of the pieces. And we're going to snip those down and bend those back right now. We're going to bend them back to basically about, I think about a ½ inch to be safe. And that should be good, and it will get rid of that error in replication across the foam sheets. So let's do that. Okay, so what we are doing here, we're grabbing our Sharpie, and we put, oops, let me just try to get that in there. Okay, and we put a little mark right there on the thing. And I'm going to try to do this so that you can see it. And then the next thing we do, I forgot, is we bend that tab away so that we can see that line right there. Now, I'm going to line myself up, and then I'll bring it back to the camera because I have to be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, there it is. So we're just gonna take it and we're gonna go snip like that. And now it's not all the way down, because if I cut it too far down, the whole piece would fall off on there because it's already cut underneath here. So after that, I'm gonna use this one because it's about the right height. Oops, there we go. And we're gonna just bend that back. Doesn't matter what direction. You just bend it. Probably I'm going outward because it's easier to do. And bam. Tab is bent. And I didn't even like tighten it up because I don't have to. It just needs to be out of the way. So I put that, I bent this number 3, which was over here. I bent it back to its original place. We were just bending that number 3, or if it happens to be on this side, it would be a number 2 that we'd be bending. We're bending that number 3 out of the way so that we can get these in here to cut. And then we put the thing back. We bring it back. Okay. So we have the first one snipped and bent back on this number 1. Now, for all the rest of the number 1s, we want to do the same process. So let's do that right now. Okay, so we have finished the press, and everything seemed to be just fine with it. And now we're going to test the press on this piece of foam core right behind me here. And so let's do that right now. I always like to test it on a piece of junk foam just to make sure it's up to temp, and it is definitely cooking in there. If you can see that, if it's focused. And so that's fine. So I'm just gonna heat that back up on the element there, and we will start pressing this thing and testing this thing directly. Okay, so here is our first press. Gonna give it a shot here. And oh yeah, that's nice. That's real nice. Wow, I think that's better than my last press. Let's see if we can look at that up close. I'm just waiting for the burner to heat up one more time. At the beginning, I kind of let this thing kind of catch up to temp. After a while, I'll be able to make multiple passes. Okay, so here we go. See if I can do this right. Oh yeah. Yeah. That is looking real nice. We're going to put a couple top rows just to stress test the vertical, and then I'll bring it up to the camera, and then we'll go into the fast load. Looks like it's lining up better than my last press, for sure. Oh yeah, I'm really liking this. Oh. Give it one more punch, and then we'll go into quick speed and press out this whole sheet. Oh yeah, that's great. Good deal. So that concludes the stone block hot press project build, and I hope you liked it. And I hope that this method comes in handy for some terrain crafters out there. If you like the video, please hit the like button or subscribe, and thanks for watching.